Hello everybody, welcome back to Momo versus MTG. It's been a little bit since I last put out some content for you guys. It's been pretty hectic, as you know. Life happens, work, all that good stuff. Keeps you busy, and I'd still reach out in the YouTube comments when those reach out, which is really cool to see that people are still commenting and stuff. So yeah, I plan to release more stuff in the coming future, just maybe a little bit slower than used to. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Today I have a bit of a different type of video. Usually it's either a deck tech or an idea. This lies closer to a deck tech, but it's pretty incomplete, I'd say. This is more of a deck concept, right? And I'm kind of asking you guys to throw your input out there as to what direction you would go, maybe totally different. But the deck idea I'm going for here is deck around the free spells in the commander format. And in particular, the ones that aren't so great. Of course, we have, your deflecting SWAT, we all know, Fierce Guardianship, that kind of thing, force of will, pitching, whatever, right? So we all get to see the good free spells, but we usually don't see the ones that aren't, considered as good. For instance, like an angelic favor. Because if we take a look at this list here, which I have in the deck description, there's a complete list of all the free spells in Magic the Gathering. So either stuff that can be reduced down to 0, usually have some alternative casting cost, or just straight up 0 CMC like a Cheerios. But the ones that really, stood out to me are the effects like Reverent Silence, right? Let's say what it is. 4 mana. If you control a forest, rather than pay for this mana's cost, each other player gains 6 life and destroy all enchantments. So this one in particular is a very powerful effect, right? You're telling me 0 mana to destroy all enchantments can be very good. Each other player gains 6 life, which isn't as, it's definitely a pretty decent downside, but in commander format really isn't that bad. But in particular, these green and white spells have pretty easy free cost to pay compared to the others. Usually the black free spells is like sacrifice a permanent, and over half of the other ones are like pitch something from your hand. The idea here really revolves around the Wheel of Sun and Moon. I want to be casting these spells as much as possible, recycling the spells almost to like an infinite state in a way, but really churn through the cards and be able to play them over and over again. This is where Wheel of Sun and Moon comes into play. It's a card I really like, and I like building deck ideas around this, and I feel like it fits half decent here. It's just getting to that situation is a bit tougher in practice. So again, more of a theory crafting deck. Let's jump into it. Now, I first started out with this with just taking a look at the green-white spells. Like, are there any commanders that fit the green-white spell-slinging theme? And it really isn't. If you take a look at EDH Rec, and then take a look at all the Slaanesia colored commanders, there's no commander that really pops out that, caters towards spell-slinging. Most of them deal with the tokens, which is great. Creature tokens, landfall themes, gaining life themes, but nothing that really, reaches out towards, if you want to cast a ton of spells, you're going to get something off of it. So I took a look at a lot. If you see something different, definitely let me know. Especially in the spell slinging theme and stuff I could just think of. No support here in green and white. At least no strong support, right? Definitely can just have a face commander that you like and do this theme. But then working around other cards for support is pretty tough in my opinion. So, yeah, if I'm going to be casting a lot of spells, I want to look at a commander that kind of reaches out towards that. And it's nice to throw in some other colors for those free spells, although there's not as many as the green and white ones that I have here. So Aragorn the Unifier seems like one of the better choices, right? Whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1 human soldier creature token, which is very important for half of the white free spells. Cast a blue spell, scry 2. And red spell, deal 3 damage to target opponent, can be a win con. And cast a green spell, creature get +4/+4 until end of turn. So, yeah, you understand the deck's idea of wanting to cast a ton of spells and hopefully be able to cycle to a spot where you're kind of just casting them over and over again. Either burning them out, buffing creatures super huge, or going wide. So I do like the options that the deck can win. It's pretty reliant on the commander in the later stages of the game. So we'll take a look at that. For instance, something like Angelic Favor has a little bit of a casting cost where you can only cast this during combat. But if you control planes, you may tap an untapped creature you control rather than play for this spell's mana cost and create a 4/4 angel creature token with flying. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So, in theory, if there's a way to recycle these spells over and over again, you could go super wide with 4/4s. Unfortunately, they don't come in with haste, so it's tough to do this on your turn while attacking for advantage. That's something I can take a look at, is maybe put a haste enabler in the deck, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But the best part is the big cost is to tap an untapped creature you control, which we do get tokens from our commander. Remember, if we're casting white spells. So we have to have at least one token out or a commander to cast it the first time, tap our commander, create the 4/4, but then subsequently forward, you can either tap the angels or the 1/1 human creature tokens coming in. So that idea I really do like. And that goes, you're getting that 1/1 for every white spell. Something like Ormond's Cure here, so half these cards you never see, which I do like the idea of playing with cards typically you don't play with. Control planes, tap an untapped creature. Prevent the next 4 damage to be dealt to any target's turn. So in theory, if you could get up to a setup where you have Wheel of Sun and Moon out on yourself, somehow get rid of all the junk in your deck, like these talismans, I'll say, the lands, that kind of deal, and get to a spot where you can cycle through the cards, the important ones, to play again and again, you kind of get in a cool situation here. So, again, this is more of a deck theory. That's why I'm running it like this. Yeah. So, going forward from here, the directions I've taken are kind of strange and kind of out there. There's definitely probably better lines to do. But the primarily game plan focus it's multi-step, and this is meant for probably super casual in its own way, in terms of the pieces it gets together, but it is looking for a combo outlet, right? So just bear that in mind. Is to kind of thin the deck in a way where you can put all the cards you want to play into your graveyard and you exile the rest or just get rid of them, right? So you have a set of cards that you want to be casting over and over again. Some effect like Doomsday would be super nice, right? To get the perfect card setup, right? This would be a perfect card just to make the deck super easy. Search, exile the rest, get 5 cards that you want to cycle through again and again, and yeah. Usually see Doomsday combo, not so much as Commander, but in Vintage and Legacy, right? So that type of effect would be ideal for the deck, right? Because in theory, if you have Wheel, Sun, and Moon, a couple of cards you want to cast over and over again on yourself. Because let's read Wheel, Sun, and Moon, right? Enchant the player. Great graveyard hate, by the way, if you're against... It's a really funny deck if you're against a Reanimator deck. If a card will be put into enchanted player's graveyard from anywhere, instead that card is revealed, put at the bottom of that player's library. So if you had a card draw effect or play a card from the top of your deck and just these free spells to cast, you could in theory buff up creatures +4/+4 infinitely, deal 3 damage infinitely, create 1/1s infinitely, that kind of deal. But getting to that spot is a bit tough. So yeah, the couple ideas I went for is having all these artifacts as your ramp in the deck and some Cheerios. I think ideally you would run more Cheerios, like the 0 CMCs. This at least, these are kind of like cantrips, these spells here, in conjunction with the card draw that we're looking for. So again, Whirlwind of Thought ideas, type effects are pretty good whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card, because in theory, you would cast a Signet for 2 mana, and now it taps for 1 mana, so almost pays for itself like a cantrip. Not a true cantrip. If we had a cost reducer in a deck of artifacts, then it would be a true cantrip, and you could start, maybe churning through all the artifacts in your deck. So that's one line I've kind of went down, but I don't like it as much because it doesn't take advantage of your commander's theme of casting colored spells. So that is definitely something. But yeah, cantrips is kind of the best thing I've thought about and going for. Like Flubs the Fool is kind of almost ideal for this. So you play additional land each of your turns. Whenever you play a land, cast spell, draw a card if you have no card in hand. Otherwise, discard a card. So it's a kind of cool way to be living on the edge in a way of just playing whatever you get. And some of these spells will provide value based on the color they are with our commander. So Flubs is, a bit risky, but can be very good. Until you hit a land card, because you only play 1 land per turn unless you have other things like Flubs himself or, Azusa, etc. So to get around this, right, there are multiple layers to the deck. Something like Endless Horizon is always a card that's interesting to me. Pretty risky if you go all out, right? Enters the battlefield, search your library for any number of planes card, exile them, and shuffle. Beginning your upkeep, you can put a card you own, exile with Endless Horizon into your hand. So this is a cool way to thin your deck of all your lands, right? Which at that point you're like, oh, why don't you just run Goblin Charbelcher, which you definitely could. But it's not the idea I want to go with the deck. There's like other ways this deck could be, made better and win probably better. Something like a Thassa's Oracle or a Laboratory Maniac if you're trying to churn your deck, trim your deck down. But yeah, this is more of a concept idea. Endless Horizon, in theory, in a 4-color deck, if all your lands are plains, so that's running the OG dual lands, which are really expensive, the snow lands, the triomes, that all have the plains typing in them, you could get all the lands out of your deck in under Endless Horizon. Now, that opens up 2 problems. One, if they remove Endless Horizons, no more land drops. But on the upside, it's kind of a free land, guaranteed land every turn if no one removes it. So, and plus, you're drawing gas, either a ramp spell, etc., something here. So it's cool. And besides that, we have our card draw package where pretty risky, but whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. Song of Creation and Flubs together is probably like ideal. Just Guy's Ascendancy, not as much, but you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card, because we don't have too many creature spells in a deck. We have a few, but it's again mostly spell slinging theme. And with that, we take a look at other things that help our game plan. Is probably these are the most efficient way at it, in my opinion, is if you have ways to exile the top card of your library in conjunction with play the top card of your library, like a reconfigured reality chip, right? Play lands, cast spells from the top of your library, so long as it's reconfigured. You have one of these out with one of these, with either Phyrexian Devourer, which is a powerful card on its own, Because you can exile top cards of your library, but it does sacrifice itself if its power is 7 or greater, and this grows in CMC equal to its mana value. So, bit of a risky one. Thought Lash is a bit less risky in a way, though it has a cumulative upkeep. Exile top card of your library with an age counter, so eventually you will exile your deck, but you can exile the top card of your library at any time to prevent 1 damage shall be dealt to you this turn. So you really don't care about the damage usually. It's more as, trimming your deck down to the cards you want in it. In conjunction with playing the top card is very good. Yeah, and that's the overarching concept, right? So you're going to be winning either with the burn spells off Aragorn, or buffing your creatures up to swing wide. It's about getting there, which is a bit tougher. Use some other cool things where I think win con you can go for is Area of Flame, which you don't see that often. Enters battlefield, each opponent gains 10 life, cool. Whenever you cast instant sorcery, put a verse counter on it, then it deals damage equal to some reverse counters on it to target player or planeswalker. So in theory, it's kind of a backup commander. If you cast a ton of spells, you'll be able to win this way. Eventually put more verse counters and just start taking people out. Chandra's Ignition is also good because if you buff up a creature very big, if you can't swing through with it, then might as well blow it up and basically wipe the board and hopefully wipe your opponents out based on its power. And Kavu Predator in conjunction with Chandra's Ignition is very good. So whenever an opponent gains life, put that many +1/+1s on this guy. So a good card on its own. And synergizes very coolly with our other free spells. Like, remember, destroy a forest, each other player gains 6 life. So if everyone gains 18 life, if you have 3 other opponents, you're just getting 18 counters on it to then blow up, right? A couple other ones like Refreshing Rains. Opponent controls a swamp, you control a forest, cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Target player gains 6 life. So there's some light synergies here just within the deck. And yeah, most of these are some pretty bad, some pretty good free spells like Obscuring Haze. You don't see as much, but again, it's kind of a fog effect, so very good. So staying alive and getting to the point where you set your deck up is pretty cool. In play may not be as cool, but it's commander format. We're trying to do funny things. And again, the whole spell recursion thing it's not as easy as do as infinitely recurring creatures, because usually the stuff that recurs the spells gives it flashback or something and has the condition of if you cast it, exile it from your graveyard. So it's tough to recur the spells nicely. That being said, Wheel Sun and Moon is the nice workaround where it throws it right back into your deck, but then you have to draw it again. So that is the tough thing about it. That being said, I like the traps too. The traps are kind of cool. There's a funny way to cycle this card. Again and again, you could in theory mill everybody out with this if you had a way to instantly recur it. The other way about going about this is something along the line of some type of Archaeomancer effect, right? Enters battlefield, return instant sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, and a Displacer Kitten effect, which aren't too many, but besides itself. So you could, in theory, infinitely flicker your free spells. Can you cast a non-creature spell? You can flicker the Archaeomancer again and again to get that free spell back, and just play that same spell over and over again. So that would maybe be an easier line of doing this besides, exiling your entire deck until you have the perfect cards. So these are all ideas I'm working with here. Some of the traps aren't as good. Um, Summoning Trap is cute and such, but not ideal. So, and there are free creatures too, but not ideal for the theme, right? This kind of leads into a different idea where you're gaining your opponent's life for a false cure win, which might be a different deck I might start thinking about and putting together. It kind of fit in theory here, but not as much. Yeah. So, without further ado, that's most of it. If you guys have comments or thoughts, please let me know. But I just want to see if I can take a look at a couple of theory hands if you want to stay for that. Again, this type of effect is allowing you to play instant sorceries from your graveyard. But again, if something were to go into it, it gets exiled. So that's where the nice Wheel of Sun and Moon effect kind of replaces that. So after we play all these free spells throughout the course of the game, we can get them back into our deck. So let's just go with like a theory crafted ideal setup, right? There's a couple of lines here that are pretty good. But there are also some that are not. This is a risky hand, but let's keep it, see what happens. Because we have Once Upon a Time as a first spell, draw a card, cast Once Upon a Time. That's pretty good. First spell, cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5, creature or land, put in your hand, rest in the bottom right order. So we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't even look at our colors. We're missing green. We'll grab Savannah. Put these at the bottom of the library, and we'll play this as a land for turn, yada yada, draw. They go next. Enters tap, we're going slow, that's fine. Draw a card, play out a land. See if we can get the reality chip out, very cool. Draw another card, and now we're kind of stuck until we get a land drop, which isn't ideal because we have all these free spells. But nothing all that great. That's what a lot of these hands are gonna look like. Ulama, we'd have to cycle this, shuffle. Nothing ideal. Open the armory, Wise is in here. Grab an aura, which we do want. The Wheel of Sun and Moon in her hand most of the time. Discard something. It's one of these crappy free spells. Draw. Okay, let's say this comes in untap, right? We get to the spot where we can cast our commander. Boom, he's out. We have our colors. Cool. We draw for turn. We are at this spot where we can reconfigure the chip. Look at the top card. Cool. It's a land card. We play it. Board wipe. Not ideal. But now, since this is reconfigured, we can start casting these spells, and a lot of them are free, right? Which we can kind of wait, maybe. Draw for turn. I'd have to discard that. Discard something else here. Mirror Fate would be a win con if we were to go this route, where you can tutor. Choose up to 7 face-up exile cards you own. Exile all cards from your library. Put them on top of your library. So we do need to exile these first. I'd have to take a look as to why that's in there. Anyhoozle. Oh, yeah, because we have our exiling effects. Very cool though. But yeah, in theory we could play this. Let's just play out this Ascendancy. Next turn. Paradise Mantle is free. And this is where we kind of start churning through cards. This is probably the most common way of doing this. So we have Paradise Mantle, trigger on Jeskai Sensi. We can either draw a card. If I do, discard a card out. Discard Looming Shaman. And start going down this way, right? Kind of like a cantrip, Farewell Stone. Do we want to draw it? Yes, we do. Discard. Whirlwind of Thought is another way to do this. You just draw the card no matter what. Cast that. Cool. Next turn. We could have cast the Wayfarer's Bauble. If we do, draw a card. Cool. I can cast this. Cool. Draw a card. Play as a land for turn. Let's say it comes tapped. And you kind of get the idea. If you start churning through these cards, drawing, churning, playing, drawing, churning, you start cycling through the cards. This is definitely probably one of the worst lines to go down, especially for time's sake. But in a theory, it's kind of cool. You know, of course, for backup win cons, you could do the pinging effects like gutter snipe, right? Have a gutter snipe effect kind of win you the game. Insert sorcery, deal 2 damage each opponent. So that is the way of going down that route. So yeah, still very, after even putting a ton of time into it, still in the very rough theory crafting stage. So yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think. I kind of want to keep true to the free instance, especially the green and white variety. And yeah, go down that route. So without further ado, this has been Momo versus MTG. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, especially if you got thoughts about the deck. And until the next one, I'll see you later.